The following program was produced by an independent community producer. The opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect those of the ECAT staff or board of directors.
Good evening and welcome to the February 2024 edition of For the Love of Words. Tonight we have with us the poet Joyce Wilson. Joyce has taught English at Boston University and Suffolk University. She is the editor of The Poetry Porch, www.poetryporch.com, a literary magazine on the internet since 1997. Her poems have appeared in many literary journals, among them the Alabama Literary Review, the Hudson Review, the Ibsen Street Magazine, Mesocommon, and Poetry Ireland. Recent publications and awards show a split in her poetic styles, in which some poems with strict meter and rhyme tend to delight, and other poems on social justice themes tend to question. Her poem, Two Dogs, The Other, and The One, won the Roberts Memorial Prize with the lyric in 2022. She presented on Spring Valley Road a call and response poem at the Spring Valley African Methodist Episcopal Church in Glen Mills, Pennsylvania, on June 18, 2022, to commemorate its restoration. A sequence of poems, The Octagonal Schoolhouse, won the Samuel Washington Allen Honorable Mention Prize from the New England Poetry Club in 2023. Her book publications include The Springhouse 3 in 2023, Take and Receive in 2019, The Need for a Bridge, a chapbook of 20 poems inspired by the Fore River Bridge, 2019, and The Etymology of Spruce in 2010. Welcome, Joyce. It's a pleasure to have you here this morning.
Thank you very much for having me.
Let's talk a little bit about what it took to organize and create and continue to run the Poetry Porch.
Well, I had worked at the Woodbury Poetry Room at Harvard, which is a library dedicated to poetry. And there I met all the poets in the area who gave readings for the room and who published in Harvard Review, where I was managing editor at the time. And so when I left, I had all these acquaintances. I had a database of emails. And the web was just coming into being, and I knew there were a lot of poets who were writing a lot and not getting published. I knew of about 4 that I really wanted to publish. So, and my husband was a whiz in technology and web design at the time. So he helped me set up one of the first websites on the internet. And it was off and running, and it's been 25 years, has it?
26.
26.
Going on 27.
Yeah, and I've been able to maintain friendships with acquaintances and associates, and there always seem to be quite a few people who are looking for a forum to publish their work. And I send out a call for papers in the beginning of the year and receive a huge slew to choose from. And it's kept going.
Now, there is on the Poetry Porch a section about sonnets.
Right, the sonnet scroll. There are a lot of people out there writing sonnets. A lot. It's amazing. And I started writing them myself. So, and yeah, that has been a really good feature.
The reason I brought up the sonnets, a section of the Poetry Porch, is because it's my experience that there are not a lot of either print or online literary journals that are looking for sonnets.
You might think that. There are quite a few.
Really? Okay.
And there are a lot of people out there writing sonnets, and I've started writing them myself. I go to a poetry conference every May in Connecticut. It's called Poetry by the Sea, and it's strictly for formalists. So I've gotten to know a lot of people who write strictly formal poetry, and that is an offshoot of the conference for formal poetry and narrative that's in Westchester, Pennsylvania. That's been ongoing since 2000, and there were actually origins before that. So that is dedicated strictly to poetry that observes rhyme and meter. So there are a lot of people writing formal poetry, and they all complain that there aren't enough poetry venues to publish them. And it is a big split. There are people who write free verse. I think the free verse poetry tends to delve deeper into its topics because it's not worried about the surfaces.
Right.
The formal poetry tends to delight in sounds, and there's a lot of light poetry that dabbles in politics, humorously so. So I'm trying to embrace the two different kinds, but they're definitely both out there.
Carl Sandburg and Robert Frost would probably.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting
or
to
Ogden Nash.
Yes.
Bring him in there too.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm going to switch now from doing the online aspect of poetry to what you did early on, about that same time, or maybe a little later, create a group of poets called the South Shore Poets. And can you describe, and the reason I'm going into this is because this is an actual live poetry reading by a group of poets who traveled, is my understanding, from one local library to the other, reading their works.
Yeah.
I think that's a fascinating concept for today's world, never mind for when it started back then.
Right.
So could you explain to the audience a little bit how that got started?
Well,
and how were you able to get those libraries sort of lined up to do the readings?
Well, Lynn Feingold actually started it after she graduated from Bridgewater College, and I took it over from her in the late 80s. And I had just finished taking classes at Harvard and studying a lot of poetry. I had a lot of poetry I wanted to write. I wanted to present it to an audience. So I thought this would be a really great opportunity to get to know other people who were writing poetry on the South Shore. And Lynn Feingold was doing a great job. She didn't want to do it anymore. So I took it over. We would, what you do is you just contact the director of the library. You say, I would like to give a poetry reading, host a poetry reading for poets in the area who are already writing poetry, to present their work. And eventually I started to apply for grants from the cultural councils, and I would apply by town. So you contact the director of the library, you send a form into the cultural council, and I would get money from to cover operating expenses, most of which ended up being flyers and posters. I would mail out flyers to invite people to come. And there were, at that time, a lot of people on the South Shore writing poetry. Some became quite well-known, like Faye George and Winston Bolton. I think just really kept going with it. Often 25 people would show up to read. And, 2 hours, 25 poets, that was a lot of poetry. It was really a blast. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed meeting the people and hearing what they were writing about, hearing the stories of their lives. And it was, the live aspect was just really inspiring too. I also think that this was in the late 80s when a lot of people were in job transitions, a lot of us. And I think many of the people who showed up were in between jobs, looking for work, interested in exploring other things, wanting to be more reflective about their lives. So I think there was that contribution.
Now, I assume you'll be reading from the Springhouse 3, one of your most recent books.
No, I wanted to read new work.
Okay,
actually.
that's fine. That's fine. So in the few minutes that we have left, let me just ask you, what is the theme that you think runs through your work, both what you've published and the new work you're going to read today?
Well, thinking about your question, I guess really the underlying theme is some kind of sustaining universal love that will carry me through all these topics so that I can express some kind of affection and affirmation and joy in the process of living and writing.
Well, with that, as sort of your own self-introduction to your work, we'll enjoy listening to you. I know I've had the pleasure of already hearing you at poetry venues read your work, and now it'll be the audience's turn to have that same enjoyment.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. I want to thank John Holgerson for inviting me to this forum. It's a great opportunity to be able to read to audiences interested in poetry or curious about poetry. I just said in the interview that I have this underlying theme of a sustaining love underneath my work, but also in my poetry, I'm interested in exploring ways to talk about things that are difficult to talk about, that you can't discuss in other ways. So today I want to read from different types of poetry that I've been writing. There's a split in my work. Some of my poems are in strict rhyme and meter, and some are more free form. The strict rhyme and meter tend to delight, and the more open poems are examining questions about social justice issues. So I'd like to begin with the incidental formal verse, and you will hear rhyme and regular meter in these poems. The first one is very short. It's based on comments I overheard during the pandemic. The title is Slant Praise, and it's for a grandson. He'll wear his new protective facial mask so long as he won't have to wear his pants. And the next poem is about my cat. I was very worried about my cat during the pandemic, what would become of him. He is a domestic shorthair. He's definitely a very calm, affectionate cat, yet he has his wild side. And this is a Shakespearean sonnet. Domestic shorthair. In the middle of the night, he comes to me and throws his back against my side and purrs. I know his purring rolls not just for me, but for his appetite. His hunger whirs. When I get up to make the daily dish that I provide for him, his kibble stew, I know it's not the sparrow he might wish to have. Still, no one loves him as I do, nor cares as much, and so I squeeze him tight, and then I sense my fervor has profaned his trust. He grasps my arm as if to bite the hand that feeds, at first with claws restrained, then draws his hind legs up, as in the wild he'd rake his prey to shreds, his frenzy riled. This poem is about our two Shelties. I was very much interested in how they related to each other. This is the poem that won the award from Lyric magazine. The dogs are unnamed. I call them the other and the one. Two dogs, the other and the one. I drop the leash. The other picks it up to help me out, especially to tup the one who catches every ball that's tossed, then cries, a baby when the ball is lost. The other watches, waiting for his chance. With ball in mouth, he lengthens his advance. One enters water as he'd cross a field. In waves up to his chest, he's forced to yield. The other sees the ocean as a threat, is horrified that one has gotten wet. Whenever one will try to slip away, the other's bark is heard across the bay. And even now, although the one has died, the other barks to bring him to his side. He listens for his step across the green. We'll know him when he comes.
Months intervene. The other starts to stretch his limbs and run. Then he is not the other, he's the one. This poem is based on my experience with Lyme disease. And after I recovered from the treatment, I really wanted to write a poem to the tick. There's a precedent for this. John Donne wrote a poem to a flea during the pandemic, during his pandemic, and W.H. Auden wrote a New Year's greeting to all of the yeasts, bacteria, and viruses that had made his body a habitat. So I wanted to address the tick itself, to a deer tick. Invasive and far-flung, you made yourself at home, then loosed your dreadful tongue to spread your awful foam, and raised your cup to toast your intimate, the deer, a once distinguished host, now feverish, I fear. To make our day complete, you left your precious stash, your gift a spirochete, your calling card a rash. How rude of you to die before we'd said goodbye. And the last poem I'll read from this group is made of 3 limericks. It was inspired by an article in the New York Times about a whale entangled in fishing gear in the New York City harbor. Oh, how it still makes my heart pale to think of the fate of a whale, with 4,000 pounds of gear that surrounds its mouth and its torso and tail. Consider the effort it took with cutter and hacksaw and hook and oversized pliers to sever the wires that fishermen dragged and forsook. 3 days and they cut the whale free and ushered it out to the sea to swim with the cod and frolic with God who watches o'er fishes and me. So for the next set, I would like to read 2 poems from my book, my chapbook, The Need for a Bridge. And these were poems that I wrote about a local bridge and its river. Out of frustration, the bridge is a drawbridge. When it opens, traffic is stopped for boat traffic, and then it closes and traffic can proceed again. Often this involved waiting 20 minutes, sometimes 40 minutes, being late for interviews, missing first act of plays, etc. The book was different for me because I relied on research much more than I had with other books, and the research helped me get past my negative feelings. The first poem is about the river before the bridge, the ferry up to 1800. 70-year-old Miss Sally Fulton was waiting for the ferry on her way from Quincy to Hingham, where land was split by rivers, one called Fore, the other back. She could have circled back around and north, up Payne's Hill through Braintree on winding roads. Instead, she headed south, a line direct to Ferry Point, low on the Quincy side. She watched the tiny flatbed ferry floating toward her over murky river waves, her horse uneasy as the phaeton leaned against the slope of gravel underfoot. Once they had lurched onto the rocking deck, the nervous look of her gray mare, wide-eyed, and sudden rustling sounds loosed from her skirts, their snap against the gusts portending rain, might have spoken to her just then as signs of changing tides and the need for a bridge. So this book wanders through and questions a lot of aspects of the bridge and commuting through communities and people who live there. What I was getting at, I think, comes through in this poem that is reaching for a metaphor. The provider, this bridge will get you. Where water has no memory, the bridge across it will remember. In this, it is like our parents, reaching out, extended, tense, eager to show it wants to please the ones it raised and flourished by. Yet we walk all over it, steps clacking rudely, or wheels rumbling. The span provides, laborious, alive with certainty, purpose. It cannot fail to keep its grip as it bears traffic over rivers' currents, writhing with the pull of lunar influence and weathers. We can be reassured and know that though the roads are stalled for miles, this bridge remembers us, and at the least will get us on our way. And I'd like to move now into my poems that I've been working on social justice themes. This poem is based on a memory, and I was riding with a friend, often going to her house on Sunday mornings. We would pass an African-American church, and it was fascinating to see the vibrant community there on a Sunday morning. My friend's house is gone now. It's replaced by a development, but the African-American church has been purchased by the township. It's been fully renovated, and it's open to the public as a kind of a museum. So I was invited to write and to present this poem at a celebration of the church's renovation the day before Juneteenth in 2022. It's a call and response poem. And so I read a line, and then there's the response on Spring Valley Road. So the poem is on Spring Valley Road. We rode together in the truck on Spring Valley Road. Late Sunday morning, it was hot on Spring Valley Road. We passed the church and looked inside on Spring Valley Road. So many people, it was packed on Spring Valley Road. The minister had just arrived on Spring Valley Road. He tipped his hat as we rolled by on Spring Valley Road. His brilliant smile enraptured us on Spring Valley Road. He reached the door and opened it on Spring Valley Road. We heard the congregation shout on Spring Valley Road. Another wave swept over us on Spring Valley Road. The sound of voices raised in song on Spring Valley Road. And that call and response format went over very well with the African-American congregation that day. So my next poems are a sequence of poems. Well, I have about 50 poems that I've been writing since 2020, since the death of George Floyd, but also before that, 2014, since the death of Michael Brown. And I'm very much interested in looking back at my childhood in southeastern Pennsylvania, between Philadelphia and Wilmington, Delaware, and thinking about my memories of that period in my life, thinking about my memories of the African-American community there, and thinking about my education about the Civil War and African Americans in our lives. So I put together 9 poems of the many that I had been working on, and I sent them off to a contest in May with the New England Poetry Club, and they won an honorable mention. So I'm going to read from some of these sequence of poems. I'm still working on how these are going to fit into a complete book. So these involve research, a different kind of research, as well as memory. So the first poem is based on a list of sources of various perspectives on the word paradise. Lesson on Paradise. Old Testament, the Garden of Eden, with Adam and Eve as its first inhabitants. Etymology from the Iranian, an enclosed garden. New Testament, After death, a Christian place of redemption. Mythology, a state of extreme bliss. Mythology, an inclusive space under divine love. Social mythology, an exclusive place that can be managed to keep others out. He arrived on foot. We did not know about the plantation in Delaware, where those who left would have come all the way by foot across state lines and into eastern Pennsylvania. How long before he found the church, the preacher who would help him find his way, who came from Wilmington, the couple from Virginia, the blacksmith and his son from Arkansas. And was the land just where they said, and his to buy with savings no one knew about? And did he find the deed nowhere to sign? His King James Bible opened, would he sit before he worked and plan what he would grow? And did he trust he'd not be driven out? Where trees were free to spread their limbs as far as they could reach, he'd have to watch for sun. He'd send his children to the public school, required by law since 1891, where they would not be taught about the place he came from, the Delaware plantation. And a lot of people ask me about this project, and I know I am writing across cultures, but I found a quote by Kwame Anthony Appiah, who writes the ethics column every week in the New York Times Magazine, that writing across cultures is good. It's lack of respect that causes problems. So I'm aware of the importance of respect in writing these poems and of maintaining distance. I don't want to assume that I know how the subjects feel, but I want to ask questions how they might have felt. And with this process, I'm learning to look for the right questions, I think, and I'm learning to live in the questions that have no obvious answers. The mower, through the school bus window. The school bus window framed the scene. I watched the mower glide across the field and down along the fence and recognized the driver at the wheel of his machine, a tractor with its seat high off the ground on tires that were as tall men's shoulders. Heard the engine's whir, its steady sound, saw the tooth-edged blade release and drop to comb the bank and make the roadside swath. He rode with ease until the plot was cut. His morning work was done, or so we thought. He'd missed a clump of daisies by the gate. By the schoolhouse gate. One day we waited by the schoolhouse gate. I could count the layers of his clothing, the overcoat, the heavy overalls, the denim work shirt buttoned to the chin. I saw his smile beneath his fur-trimmed hat. What secret knowledge bound him with that smile? What burned within to fill him up with warmth? Bible verses he had memorized, the season's earnings he had tallied up, things he had saved, discarded window frame, historic sign, a bucket, mended wagon, length of wire, burlap, bits of tin. The man who lived to work and work nonstop, a proverb of an endless industry, whose forebears used a scythe to cut this plot. For them, perhaps, the daisies left uncut. Lesson on pursuit of happiness. Some suggest that Jefferson was wrong, that he might have translated the Greek arete as excellence, not happiness, the right to pursue that which interests us according to our talents until we become good at what we were born to do and can contribute our newly won skill for the love of it to the benefit of democracy, which would lead to a deeper fulfillment. Such a pursuit gives coherence to the meaning of life. The baseball player. We'd heard the rumor that, decades before, he had once been famous playing ball, and when he came of age, did he observe how farmers pushed the plows in measured rows, and how the ball would make a measured arc as he leaned back and balanced on the ground and threw, to send a meteor by force of will each time until his brother caught it in midair and sent it back to him, where it would smack against his open palm. To marvel at the speed and harmony of form, this back and forth, repeat again. To love the fairness in the measured game, the structure and the rules, the cool surprise. To sign up with the Negro Baseball League and play for all the farmers, just like him. The House on the Hill. The house was abandoned when my father walked up the hill to photograph the image of all that remained, walls, windows, roof, where he discovered the remnants of a life, a 2-roomed house, a family house for 3, father, mother, son, festooned with roses that grew from the foundation at the south and poked their peachy blossoms up and through the window like a local improvement committee come to help or beautify or gossip. Imagine the 3 of them lived here and made a home in this small space. A sacred space now, like a paradise, a path between the present and the past that we humans can imagine, where history reveals connections as a kind of peace between the intervals of life and death. So I'm still working on more of these poems, on lessons and observations, putting feelings into words and illuminating history. Thank you very much for listening.
There's a storm.
Join me, Priscilla Almquist Olsen, to explore the town of Easton and its interesting, engaging, ordinary, and extraordinary people, and meet a smorgasbord of guests, including artists, authors, musicians, business owners, community organizations, clergy, local leaders, etc., etc., etc. Community Forum at 3 p.m. on Thursdays and 1:30 p.m. on Saturdays. See you then.
Welcome to Service Matters, a weekly radio show that talks about the good things that are happening in local communities and beyond.
Since 1978, the Eastern Food Pantry has been dedicated to providing food to our neighbors in times of need. As long as there's hungry people in our community, our doors are open, our hearts will be open to help.
We also like to talk about the good things that people do to make a difference, and in many cases, to make dreams real for folks out there in need.
Just to chat about, as you say, some of the good things in life. There's some of the good things, the great things, and the happy things.
And certainly watch us on ECAT, Eastern Community Access Television.
Welcome to For the Love of Words. My name is Priscilla Almquist Olsen, your host, and today it's my great pleasure to welcome Tim Steinruck, or I should say Steinruck,
very nice.
whose parents emigrated from Germany to Vancouver, British Columbia. And so, Tim, welcome to the show, and welcome to this wonderful technology that brings you all the way across America to Vancouver. And we thank you so much for being here. So tell me a little bit about your background.
Sure. Well, first of all, Priscilla, it's a real pleasure to be with you here today. Let me see. I'm in Vancouver, Canada right now. I grew up in northern British Columbia. And so I grew up on a farm. It was a grain farm, about 800-acre farm. I'm a first-generation Canadian. So my parents both came from Germany. They were both immigrants. And they met and they had me and decided that they wanted to live a pioneering farm life. So that's what I was born into. It was an interesting community because it was a Mennonite community. And if you don't know what a Mennonite is, if you think of an Amish person, that's kind of what the community was like. And so that's what I was born into. The church was our social hub. It was our source of music. It was our source of entertainment. My dad was the organist there, and my mom was the Sunday school teacher. And we were a pretty musical family, so we would always rehearse these productions, these specials, as they were called, prior to the sermon. And so I've been in show business pretty well all my life since I was about 5 years old.
Wow. And did you speak German in those services? Were the
Um,
service, were the
no, the
services?
services were the service. There was a lot of German speaking people there, but the services were in English.
Mhm.
But my parents were not great English speakers, and I really didn't start speaking English until I went to school. And it was really tough because when I first started going to school, I didn't know any English, so there was a big learning curve there. It was one of my big challenges.
So du sprichst Deutsch. Das
Ich
habe ich
sprich
gehört.
Deutsch, ja.
Fantastisch. Ich war auf dem Bauernhof, wie sagt man das, der Farm.
Yes.
Uh, also many years ago, I was on a farm in Germany, and my husband was at the Max Planck Institute for Biochemistry, and
Mm,
I studied German for 4 intensive months, and then I got a job teaching English in the public schools. So, but
incredible.
uh, I need a beer and a week in Germany, and then it'll all come back. How
And a,
about
sa- and,
you?
and a sausage if you eat those.
Okay, I'm sure your German is a lot better.
It's, 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 all depends how much you speak it, right? If you're practicing it all the time,
Yeah.
I mean, it's all there, but if you're not practicing it, it's sometimes accessing that file can be challenging.
Yes, that's true. Now you've given us 3 songs that you wrote: uh, "Warrior D-Day," "Torch of Rock and Roll," "Darker Side of Me." Which of those do you think had a German influence? Maybe the rhythm, maybe the tone.
I mean, I can't really say that they have a specific German influence, but I will say that the torch of rock and roll, really, in many ways, is my autobiography. In it, I tell the story about growing up north. I tell the story about falling in love with a band called Kiss, which really was diametrically opposed to this religious upbringing that I was brought up in. Um, and so, and this dream that I had when I fell in love with this band called Kiss, this dream that I had of meeting Kiss one day, and as it turns out, I ended up getting a record deal, a management deal with Paul Stanley, the lead singer of Kiss, later in life.
Wonderful. What do you know? And so tell me a little bit about Warrior D-Day. I understand that came out of a really unique experience.
Yeah, so I'm very blessed to be part of a fledgling reality or docudrama, I guess you could call it more, show where we give musicians their first touring experience. Oftentimes alongside, more experienced musicians, but we give them this touring experience. It's called Rise Up TV. You can find that on YouTube. We're working with some major networks right now for release of our 12 episodes. But we had the opportunity in 2022 to go to Europe. And as we were planning this 12 months in advance, um, one of the locations we knew that we were going to was to Normandy, France. And we would actually be going to Utah Beach.
Mm.
And so, being a big lover of visualization and as a creative writing from that place of visualization, I visualized what it would be like to be on Utah Beach and what would be the song that I would write. And so I wrote the song Warrior D-Day to honor all of the thousands of fallen that sacrificed their lives in order that we could have freedom.
Yeah, and the eventual end of World War II. Yeah,
It was really the beginning of the end of World War II. That's right. The
yeah.
liberation of France.
So you've traveled extensively, and you must have the travel bug.
I have the travel bug. I love even just getting in the car and going for a long drive or traveling somewhere local. We live here in Vancouver. There's so many things I haven't seen, but this worldwide travel is absolutely such a blessing. For instance, 2025, we're planning right now with Rise Up TV to go to Papua New Guinea, and we're planning to go to Cambodia, maybe even Thailand.
Wow, wonderful. Oh, those are experiences. And so there'll be many songs coming from those experiences, won't there?
I guarantee you, I've already started working on some songs that I sort of visualize that I'll be playing when I go there. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Great. And The Darkest Side of Me, that's an interesting one. It sounds very philosophical, is it?
It is. It is. One of the things that I'm very passionate about is people, working with people. I am a certified master life coach, and one of the things that has healed me and really helped me to become a whole person is to really look at the shadow sides of myself. And so this song is really about looking at the shadow side of ourselves, very much like when the brighter the sun, the more defined your shadow is. So that polarization that's there naturally, bringing that together to make a whole person out of it. It's important to make friends with our darker side.
And so when you talk about shadows, can you give us some examples of shadows?
Shadows in ourselves. I mean, they can be our fears, the parts of us that are there that we don't want to really see. Maybe there's something inside of us that needs to be healed, that we've taken on somehow in our life. Maybe there's an emotion that doesn't really serve us, but maybe that's anger, or maybe that's jealousy, or whatever it is. Any of those negative sides of ourselves, we need to acknowledge and find a way to bring them to the surface so that they can be healed.
Yeah, and I think some of them, like fears and all, we need to accept them also. Now, tell me. So we're going to hear these three wonderful songs. And has your religious upbringing, has that helped you to be creative in terms of the writing the lyrics of your song?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's had a huge influence on me. Obviously, like I said, growing up in the church and being in the choir at 5 or 6 years old and learning about harmony and all of those things, the gospel aspect is definitely part of the way that I arrange vocals. And then, for me, it's impossible to just, you'd figure, okay, well, hard rock and roll, he's singing about sex, drugs, and rock and roll. I can't. I need to sing about things that have substance, that have meaning. My whole goal with my music is that my music in some way would help to make somebody else's life better, or even even more than that, to help transform their life in some way. That's my
okay. We have to stop here so we can hear your music. Thank you so much, Tim, for joining us. All
Fantastic.
The best.
Thank
Bye
you.
now.
Whoa, yeah, yeah, yeah. When I was just 13, when rock and roll was king, that's when I joined the Kiss Army. Destroyer in my hand, the cover dark and glam, it lit a flame inside of me. I wanna see the lights, I wanna feel the flames. Whoa, yeah, burning, burning, whoa.
Here we are on Utah Beach in Normandy, and wanted to play a song to honor the veterans that came and sacrificed themselves here. This is for them. In a time of great fear, you were strong, you were here. As the bombs fell all around, and your brothers fell to the ground, you did not hide. You did not run away. You stood and held your ground. So we honor you today, 'cause you gave everything on this beach. In our darkest hour, you came and rescued me. Oh, the warrior you'll always be. With your sacrifice, you came and set us free. Warrior. We want you to know we're still at war, because the power hungry, they still want more. As a world it crumbles all around, we still search for peace, the battle still goes on. Because of you, we will not run away. We'll stand and hold our ground until the victory day. 'Cause you gave everything on this beach. In our darkest hour, you came and rescued me. Oh, the warrior you'll always be. With your sacrifice, you came and set us free. Warrior. Warrior, warrior, warrior. Happy Remembrance Day, everybody.
There's a place I sometimes go where it's raining, mist and cold, far away from peaceful light and warm. But I hold it, I embrace. Dark cloud shadows cross my face, Viking anger and a lust for more. And you reflect that part of me, and in your eyes I see the darker side of me.